Now let's get into today's story. If you would have asked me 10 years ago what my future would look like, I would have painted you a picture-perfect life. A cozy home in the suburbs, 2 kids with matching lunchboxes, a faithful husband who brings home flowers on random Tuesdays, and me balancing a career I loved while still making pancakes on Sunday mornings. For the most part, I had all of that, or at least I thought I did. My name is Allison Parker, and I was married to Ryan Parker for 12 years. We met in college. He was studying architecture. I was working toward a degree in marketing. We were that couple everyone assumed would last. You know the type. Holding hands at football games, dancing like idiots at weddings, whispering secrets in quiet corners. I believed in us so much that I built my world around him. Little did I know, the foundation I was standing on wasn't just cracked, it was hollow. I gave everything to our life together. After we got married, I took a step back from my career so we could start a family. We had 2 beautiful kids, Emma and Nathan, and I threw myself into being a mother. I still did some freelance marketing work, but my real job became keeping our family moving like a well-oiled machine. School lunches, doctor appointments, playdates, birthday parties, you name it, I was on it. And Ryan, he climbed the ladder. He started out at a small firm but eventually became a senior architect at one of the top firms in the city. I was proud of him. He worked long hours, but I believed it was for us, for our family. Looking back, I missed the signs. They weren't even subtle. I was just too trusting, too loyalty to see them for what they were. Late nights that turned into overnights, business trips that seemed too frequent for someone in his position. The sudden way he started guarding his phone, changing passwords, taking calls in the garage or on the deck, always just out of earshot. And the emotional distance, it crept in like fog. One day, he just wasn't present anymore. He was still there, sitting across from me at dinner, sleeping beside me in bed, but his mind was somewhere else, somewhere I wasn't invited. It was one moment that shattered everything. A forgotten smartwatch left charging on the kitchen counter. One innocent vibration. A preview of a message from someone named M. I wasn't the type to snoop. Never had been. But something about the timing was off. He was supposed to be in a meeting. So why was M sending him a heart emoji and asking if he missed her? My hands trembled as I picked it up. The messages were all there, synced with his phone, and with each scroll my heart broke in slow motion. Her name was Michelle. She worked at the firm. They had been seeing each other for nearly 9 months. There were weekend trips I hadn't known were actually with her. There were lies. So many lies about working late, about canceled meetings, about just needing space. He even told her he wasn't happy at home, that I didn't understand him, that our marriage was a formality at this point. A formality. I remember sitting there in the kitchen, the kids at school, the dog asleep at my feet, just staring at that screen until the tears dried on my cheeks. And then I felt something else. Not just betrayal, not just sadness. I felt rage. Cold, sharp rage like I had never known. I wasn't going to break. I wasn't going to scream or throw things or beg. No, that wasn't me. What I was going to do was far more calculated. I spent the next few weeks playing the role of the oblivious wife. I smiled. I cooked. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings and asked about his day at night. But inside I was unraveling a plan one thread at a time. I started gathering everything. Bank statements, credit card charges, emails, location data, anything I could find. I wanted the whole picture. I wanted to know what kind of man he had become behind my back. Turns out he wasn't just cheating. He was reckless. He had taken money from our joint savings account to rent a condo in the city. He had opened a separate credit card, one I didn't know existed. He bought her jewelry, clothes, even flew her out to Napa Valley on a weekend I had spent home alone with the flu. He was building a second life. And all the while, he would come home and kiss me on the forehead like nothing was wrong. I started documenting everything. I took screenshots, made copies, stored them all in a secret folder on a flash drive. I even created a fake email account just in case I needed to send them to myself or someone else. I wasn't sure yet how I'd use it, but I knew it would come in handy. I wasn't just preparing for a confrontation. I was preparing for a war. Then came the final straw. Emma had a dance recital, something she'd been practicing for months. She asked Ryan every day if he'd be there, and he promised he wouldn't miss it for the world. I even bought him a new shirt and tie to wear. But the day of, he called an hour before the show and said he was stuck at a client dinner. I knew that was a lie. So I checked the GPS tracker I had secretly installed in his car, and sure enough, he was parked outside that downtown condo with her. I smiled at my daughter, wiped her lipstick, and told her she was going to be amazing. She was. She danced her heart out. But afterward, when all the other dads were handing out flowers and taking photos, I had to lie. I said her dad got caught in traffic. She didn't cry, but I saw her little heart break just a bit. And that's when I knew it was time. The next morning I got up before dawn. I dressed the kids and dropped them off at my sister's, telling them I had a doctor's appointment. Then I drove straight to Ryan's office building. I wasn't planning to make a scene. I wanted something quieter, more precise. I waited in the parking garage, and when he finally showed up, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, I stepped out from behind a column. He froze when he saw me. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to speak, but didn't know what words to use. "We need to talk," I said calmly. He tried to play it cool. "Can it wait till later? I've got a meeting."
No, interrupta.
Now we went to a nearby coffee shop. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I pulled out a folder and laid it flat on the table. Inside were printed pages, photos, messages, receipts, evidence. He turned pale. "Allison, this isn't what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I said. "And now I'm giving you two options." He looked confused. "You tell Michelle it's over. You quit your job. And you agree to a fair divorce, or I send this." I tapped the folder to "your boss, your parents, and her husband." Yes, her husband. I hadn't mentioned that part yet. Oh yes, Michelle was married too. And I had already made contact with him. His name was Greg, and he was just as shattered as I was. We had spoken several times by then. He was kind, soft-spoken, and just as blindsided. We became allies in a way. Two strangers pulled into the same storm. Ryan stared at me, stunned. Then his face hardened. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." He didn't say much after that. He left, slamming the door behind him. I knew he would go straight to her, and that was fine. I had already decided what came next. I wasn't waiting around for him to pick between us. I was going to burn the fantasy to the ground and walk away with my head held high. This wasn't the end. Not even close. It was only the beginning. After that meeting at the coffee shop, Ryan didn't come home for 3 days. Not that I expected him to. I imagined him crashing at the condo he shared with Michelle, pacing the floor, trying to convince himself that I was bluffing, that I was just another hurt wife throwing a tantrum. But I wasn't hurt anymore. Not in the way he thought. I was focused, I was ready, and I had just begun. The kids asked questions, of course. I gave them vague but reassuring answers. Dad had to work out of town. Last-minute meeting. Nothing to worry about. They accepted it for the most part. Emma had always been sensitive, though. She watched me carefully, like she could sense something shifting. And Nathan, well, he was too young to understand. But I made a silent promise to both of them. Whatever came next, I would protect them from it. On the 4th day, Ryan came back. I was in the kitchen when I heard the garage door open. My stomach tightened. I had mentally prepared for this confrontation, but still seeing him again made the air feel heavier. He walked in carrying an overnight bag, his shoulders tense, face drawn. "I need to talk to you," he said. "I'm listening," I replied, not looking up from the dishes. He dropped his bag by the stairs and leaned on the counter. I told her, "It's over." I didn't react. I packed up the condo. "I'll cancel the lease this week." Still I said nothing. "I'll talk to the firm. I'll ask for a transfer or resign if I have to." You are serious. I get it. Good. I said quietly. He looked at me almost expecting a thank you. It was laughable. I'm not doing this because I want to save our marriage, I added. I'm doing this because I want control over how it ends. That stunned him. I'll file the papers, I continued. We'll divide everything legally. You'll have visitation rights with the kids, but I want full physical custody. You can have the boat. I'll keep the house. I'll also need spousal support until I return to work full-time. And no, this isn't a negotiation. He blinked, caught completely off guard by how composed I was. Allison, I messed up. I know that. But maybe we can know, I cut him off. You don't get to cheat on me for nearly a year and then come back here trying to rewrite the ending. You built your little world with her. You threw our family aside for it. So now you live with what's left. He left that night. No yelling, no arguments, just silence. I think he finally understood that the woman he thought he could manipulate had vanished. I wasn't broken. I was sharpened. What Ryan didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't just planning a legal separation. I was orchestrating a complete take-own. The first step was professional. I reconnected with former colleagues and clients, updating them on my availability for marketing work. I worked quietly but persistently. Within weeks, I had a steady freelance schedule and enough income to stand on my own. I needed that independence not just financially but emotionally. I refused to be the woman defined by betrayal. The second step was social. I didn't isolate myself. Quite the opposite. I invited friends over, joined local groups, even started running again with a few neighborhood moms. People noticed the change in me. They asked questions. I answered vaguely. I didn't need pity. I needed strength. Every time I laced up my shoes and hit the pavement, every time I hosted a dinner party with a smile, I was reclaiming pieces of myself that Ryan had chipped away. But the third step, the most important one, was strategic. That's where Greg came in. Michelle's husband. We had kept in touch since our first conversation. At first, it was just to share updates, compare stories, exchange pieces of the puzzle. But over time, we formed something deeper. A shared understanding that only those betrayed in the same specific way could have. Greg was calm, measured, and smart. He wasn't out for blood, but he wasn't going to let her walk away clean either. She still doesn't know I know. He told me during one call. You haven't confronted her? I asked. I'm waiting for the right time. We agreed that if we moved too fast, they just twist the narrative. Michelle would play the victim. Ryan would claim it was just a fling. But if we moved deliberately, precisely, we could expose them in a way that left no room for excuses. Greg started by collecting his own evidence, bank statements, messages, photos. We shared timelines, alibis, even hotel confirmations. Felt like building a case. And in many ways it was not a legal one but a moral one. We wanted them to face the consequences in every corner of their lives. Not just from us but from the people they lied to, the careers they risked, the families they broke. And then came the perfect opportunity. Michelle's firm, the same one where Ryan worked, was hosting a spring gala. A big formal affair with employees, spouses, clients, and board members. It was supposed to be a celebration of the company's success. Greg managed to get an invitation thanks to a client he knew. And me, I came as his date. I wore a dark green dress, sleek and understated. My hair was up, my heels sharp. I looked nothing like the woman Ryan had seen crying in our kitchen a month ago. Greg wore a clean black tux, his demeanor cool and composed. We didn't arrive early. We timed it perfectly, walking in just after Ryan and Michelle had made their entrance. The look on their faces when they saw us was indescribable. Ryan turned pale, his eyes darting between me and Greg like we were ghosts. Michelle's smile faltered then froze. I raised my glass and nodded. We didn't cause a scene. We didn't need to. We moved through the crowd with purpose, mingling with clients, exchanging small talk. We dropped subtle hints here and there. References to our shared experiences, little comments that made people curious. And then, just as dessert was served, Greg slipped an envelope to one of the board members. Inside was a collection of emails and photos. Nothing scandalous, but enough to prove misconduct. You see, Michelle and Ryan hadn't just been cheating on their spouses. They'd been breaking firm policy. The company had strict guidelines about inter-office relationships, especially ones where one person had authority over the other. Michelle was technically on a team Ryan oversaw. By the following Monday, HR was involved. An internal investigation began. And within a week, both of them were asked to resign. They didn't go quietly. Ryan tried to spin it, claimed it was consensual, said they weren't technically violating policy. Michelle cried and begged for a second chance, but the damage was done. Clients were wary. Trust was broken. The firm didn't want the liability. When Ryan called me later that week, I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything." I didn't respond because he had it backwards. I didn't destroy anything. I revealed the truth. The life he ruined wasn't mine. It was his own. As for Greg and me, we didn't become a couple despite what some people expected. We remained friends. Our connection was forged in fire, but it wasn't built for romance. We helped each other through the worst of it, and then we gave each other space to heal. I finalized the divorce that summer. The kids stayed with me, but Ryan had visitation every other weekend. He moved into a small apartment across town and took a lower-level job at another firm. The house felt quieter without his presence, but not emptier. In fact, it felt lighter, like we could finally breathe. There were nights I cried. Of course, healing isn't a straight line. Sometimes the memories came rushing back. The birthdays he missed, the lies he told, the years I gave away without question. But then I'd look at Emma playing piano or Nathan building Lego towers on the floor. And I'd remember why I did it, why I had to be strong for them, for myself. Revenge, I learned, doesn't always look like fury or fire. Sometimes it looks like silence, like poise, like walking into a room and holding your head high while the people who wronged you shrink in their seats. It's not about making them suffer. It's about reclaiming the power they thought they stole. And I had reclaimed mine piece by piece. Time moved on, but the past didn't just vanish. It lingered, sometimes in the form of awkward glances at the grocery store, sometimes in the tone of a friend who didn't know whether to ask how I was or pretend nothing had happened. But I welcomed it. All of it. Because those remnants reminded me of how far I'd come. Ryan tried to rebuild his life. He moved to a smaller firm, one that didn't ask too many questions. Michelle left the state entirely. Last I heard, she was working for a startup in Denver. Neither of them ever apologized, not sincerely. Ryan made a half-hearted attempt once during a drop-off with the kids, but I cut him off. "Don't say sorry because you feel guilty," I told him. "Say sorry when you've learned something." He didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away. Maybe he finally understood. Maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my burden anymore. The kids adjusted better than I expected. They were young, resilient. Emma asked tough questions sometimes. Why Daddy didn't live with us, why people whispered when they saw us in public. I answered honestly within reason. I didn't want to poison her with bitterness. But I refused to lie. People make mistakes, I told her one night as I tucked her in. But the important thing is that we learn who we can trust and who we can become no matter what. She looked at me with those big, thoughtful eyes and said, "You're brave, Mommy." That's when I finally cried, not because I was sad, but because someone saw me, the real me. I kept moving forward. I took on bigger freelance projects, eventually launching my own marketing consultancy. I made new friends. I started hiking on weekends. I even went on a few dates. Not to fill a void, but because I was finally whole enough to share space with someone without giving myself away in pieces. One spring afternoon, I stood in my backyard watching Nathan chase a soccer ball and Emma practice cartwheels. The sun was warm, the trees full and green. It hit me then. This was my life. Not the broken remnants of a marriage. Not the aftermath of betrayal, but something entirely mine. Something I rebuilt with intention, strength, and clarity. Revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was peace. It was standing in the sunlight, surrounded by laughter, knowing I had survived the storm and came out stronger. That was the ending I chose, not destruction, but freedom. And I'd never give it up again.